This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
Views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, we do encourage you to like and share them on social media such as Facebook or YouTube, or share them with your friends. Text them a copy of this show after we get it up on YouTube, because it's time for Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie to present the weekly operation we call Rudy Howard's African American Scene with Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. Well, I first have to tell you I'm bitterly disappointed. I was supposed to have the two mayoral candidates on today, but they were both had to cancel. So I'll try to make arrangements for them to come on again sometime in the near future. But we're going to have open mic night tonight. I'm going to continue with some of the questions I had last week, and then we're going to talk about some other issues for this show. First, let's take a little bit of a look at the history of the Republican Party. I don't know if some of you know, but the Republican Party was formed from the old Whig Party. And what happened was there was a split up in the Whig Party. You had a pro-slavery division of the Whig Party, and you had an anti-slavery division of the Whig Party. So because you had that split, eventually, they broke up completely, and the Republican Party was born. And the first convention for the Republican Party was held in Michigan in 1854. So, isn't that interesting? The original roots of the Republican Party were anti-slavery. How about that? Anti-slavery. And the Democratic Party was pro-slavery and very racist. Now, some of my Republican friends love to call up and remind me of the fact that the Democratic Party was very racist and spawned the KKK. And that's fine that you can call up and remind me of that, but what you should be learning when you call up to remind me of that is that they changed. They were able to see the errors of their ways. And they chased the Dixiecrats over to the Republican Party. You may recall that Strom Thurmond, an avowed racist, ran for president of the United States as a Democrat. And after being unsuccessful in running for the president of the United States, he and other Democrats moved to the Republican Party. So, yes, when you call up and tell me that the Democratic Party used to be racist, yes, that's true. But you're missing the most important part. They changed. They found out that they could change and embrace a broader swath of the American people by reforming those things that they believed in. And it wasn't easy, and it wasn't always smooth, but they did it. And when they did that, they took the African American vote and brought it over to the Democratic side. And that number again is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. I think you can, if you go back, you can trace that almost back to FDR's change in creating job opportunities after the Depression. So, Cliff, I'm hearing something here.
Only selling headsets.
Okay, all right.
RF.
Yeah. So I think that's when it really was, when FDR came up with the Great American Society after the Depression, and came up with some good policies to go by, which created opportunities like the Tennessee Valley Authority. Came up with some good policies that created opportunities for the public at large, and a modification of some of the philosophies that had been traditionally democratic philosophies. Now, just so you know, some of the things that he implemented in early phases were not meant to include black people on purpose, but they were later modified. So even though they had made the change, there was still some exclusion of people of color. Now, I'm going to go back to something that we talked about not long ago, which is this critical race theory thing. This is just driving me nuts, because critical race theory is like 40 years old. 40 years old, and now it's become an issue. And I'm telling you, the only reason why it's an issue is it gives red meat to the Republicans and gives them something to stir them up, and creates a social issue that is a further wedge into our society. That's all it is, because the conservative critical race theory is nothing more than a philosophical process by which they attempt to examine the endemic effect of racism on society. And how can you say there has not been an endemic effect of racism on our society? That's just absolutely insane. And why do you want to protect kids from finding that out? The phone number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. There's no reason for them to not know that. Because, listen, I am a firm believer, if you've listened to me for any length of time, one of the things that I tell you all the time is that when you get to know somebody that's different than you are, it changes a lot of your thinking about that individual, because now you've got something to measure it with, as opposed to not having something to measure it with. So, but by the same token, if you are that person that is having a meeting of the minds with somebody different than you, don't just sit there and allow them to say anything they want to say, even if it's offensive to you, to just get along. That does you and them no good, especially the person that you're with. It only tells them that what they're saying is okay. And you can tell them that what they're saying is not okay without being nasty. You don't have to be nasty. But you could say, look, I don't appreciate you saying that. And if they may say, well, why? And here's why you shouldn't say that. And if that is a burden for them to have to live with that, then y'all probably don't need to be friends. So, but that whole thing with this critical race theory is just driving me absolutely bonkers. And part of the reason why, the other thing I'm going to say to you about this is, they talk about critical race theory having an effect on children. Well, let me explain to you, and I've said this before, so just bear with me if you heard it. I grew up seeing one white guy go into the jungle, beat up all the natives, some of whom were fierce warriors, talk to all the animals, and that was a model. And you know what? Every kid on my block when I lived in Philadelphia wanted to be like Tarzan. And what a bunch of crap that is. This one white guy going into the jungle among all the Africans, and he's able to beat them up and tame all the animals with his speech. You think that did not have an impact on a young, impressionable African-American kid? You bet it did. We outgrew it, but it certainly had its impact. Don't think for 1 minute that it didn't, because it did. Okay.
Didn't you say that you saw a newer Tarzan movie that looked like
Yes.
they may have corrected that, right?
They did.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, the newest Tarzan movies, they did correct that. First of all, in the movie, the gorilla beat the devil out of him. And in the movie, all the Africans were his friends. And his friends, the Africans, helped him fight the evil guys that were coming in to do bad stuff to the country.
The poachers,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to see it just because I wanted to see if they fixed that, and they did.
Wow.
And that made me feel good that they did not continue to perpetuate that garbage that they had started years ago.
Well, the reason we call it perpetuating garbage is because, we know a whole lot better that in a country where we all have equal rights and can get along and should get along, but yet still don't. What can we learn from that? Well, it's easy when the role model is made in a positive way.
Yes.
And it's acceptable to all of society.
Yes.
Because, it keeps the mentality that black folks were from Africa as tribesmen. And we're forgetting that there's another part of Africa that has much more royalty about it than the jungles of Africa, but Egypt.
Absolutely.
Now, you look at those statues. Now, these were the statues of the gods of Egypt.
Yes.
Now, there was something offensive that somebody with some guns found reason to maybe, change things on the face of some of these statues, like facial features.
Like on the Sphinx, yes.
Yeah, and the Sphinx and there's other statues over there where the noses have been blown off of them with bullets. You know, you can go in to look at ancient Egyptian statues, and you'll see this again and again. You'll think, why did they do that? Is there something they didn't want the rest of the world to know?
I think when it comes to Egypt, first of all, if you hear people talk about Egypt, they talk about it like it's not part of Africa.
Yeah.
Often. They
Yeah.
don't want to acknowledge that Egypt is part of Africa. It's like, okay, here's Africa, and Egypt sits over here in the corner, and it's not really part of Africa. Wrong, it's part of Africa.
Oh, yeah.
And you had some people that did some unbelievable things that have got scientists to this day scratching their head. How did they do that back at that time when they had none of the machinery and things that we have available?
Some of the greatest debates in the world today are over just that right there. How
Yes.
did they do it?
The pyramids. There is, a matter of fact, one of the theories is about the pyramids. I don't know if you heard this or not, that there were some aliens that came down and constructed the pyramids.
You know that I've heard all that because I look for that stuff.
Right.
But then again, now we face another little fact here now that a lot of folks aren't going to like. A lot of conservatives are not going to like. We do have disclosure now on about UFOs, and the government has been, of course, ordered to do an executive order that was filtered in through those payment checks they sent out to everybody, the stimulus package, and it was a little paragraph hidden very well in that document. How many thousands of pages was it to hide something in there? And the government was ordered to disclose everything we know about the UFOs and aliens by the end of June. It was a 180-day order. It was back in January, right? Mm-hmm. And you look on YouTube, and they're starting to tell us stuff. But you know what they're telling us? They're trying to be honest about it, not sound silly, but they don't know. They don't have any idea.
That's right.
If we weren't such a warmongering country, because what they want to do is first and foremost, let's see, can we shoot this down? Can we kill one of them and see what they look like? Well, is that what they really want to do? because so far there's been nothing that any alleged alien has done that would appear to be a threat. But I understand that they're afraid that it might be like China or Russia with a new secret weapon. Because that's the first thing we do when we learn their technology, how to weaponize it.
Yes.
Because we just want to learn how to kill more people. Maybe there will be peace on Earth eventually. Maybe we will see angels in the heavens flying around.
I would hope so. I just think that when man is willing to see the humanity of mankind, then I think we can really make some progress. But unfortunately, we're at a time when it's very hard for people to see the humanity of mankind. For example, why would you purposely try to keep people from voting? You try to keep people from voting because you're afraid they won't vote the way you want them to vote. Well, why do that? There's a simple solution. I just told you earlier when I was talking about the history of the Republican Party, the Democratic Party changed their ideology and their processes so that they could engage more people to join their party, and they were successful. Republicans could do the same thing, but rather than do that, they want to force everybody to do what they want you to do, think the way they want you to think, and behave the way they want you to behave. That's not American.
To the religion as they see it.
Right, yes.
So that they can let God take all the credit for it or the blame for it.
Yes, it's just ridiculous. We don't have to do that. Just all you got to do, open up the process, and if you really believe what you believe, the whole point of democracy is the person with the best ideas win. So if you don't want to play that game, then you're not believing in democracy. You don't believe in fairness. You don't believe that there is equal opportunity for you to be successful as a Republican in this society. You're losing ground rapidly. And the more you push like you're doing now, the more you're losing ground. And that's too bad because we need balance. But you are slowly and surely putting yourself out of business. You got famous Republicans now that are turning against the party. High profile people. Matthew Dowd, who's a very famous part of the Bush administration, is out there talking about how terrible his party was, and he's been a member all his life. George Will, another highly intellectual Republican, turned against his party. Could not see himself being a part of it with Trump being the leader of the Republican Party. And listen, some of these people are coming out with these tell-all books, and one of them, I saw an interview with him last night. He said it was unbelievable how incompetent President Trump was. It was unbelievable. He had no business being in the White House. He was absolutely terrible. Now, I know there's going to be some of you that are kicking the radio now, and you probably want to hit me upside the head, but it's just a fact. The historians are saying it. He's one of the worst presidents in the history of this country. Now, I know you love him, and I know you want to praise him, but here's the simple fact. He's had 215 indictments during his 4 years as president. He was impeached twice. No president has ever been impeached twice. So you're going to say, well, they were out to get him. Well, you don't think they were out to get Obama? Do you really believe that there was nobody out to get Obama? Obama just ran a clean operation. And I can tell you that having been a manager of a large organization in New York City, you set the tone from the top for the behavior of your organization. You set the tone. So, I mean, I did a small thing. I lived in Long Island. I caught the 4:57 train every morning going to Manhattan. And the reason why I did that was I didn't want anybody telling me they couldn't get to work on time. Because I was usually there each morning by 6:15, 6:30, and we didn't open until 8 o'clock.
I'm kind of obsessive like that.
Yeah, right.
I always leave with enough time just in case I got a flat tire on the way.
Yeah.
Just you know, it's always been like that. It's now the older I get, the more of an obsession I find it to be.
Yeah.
More of a distractive obsession, but because it's not really necessary.
No, but what I did was, because I had people come into work from Brooklyn and the Bronx and Staten Island and Queens. I never wanted to hear them. They could never say to me they couldn't get to work on time. That
Transportation is easy, right? The subways and the buses.
Yeah, I had to take the railroad. So yeah, you couldn't tell me you couldn't get to work on time because I did it. So, but anyway, so that's that. But I don't want to belabor that point too much anymore. But and the other thing that I asked you, and I'm still waiting. I haven't even had one phone call on it yet. Tell me how being a Republican has helped you personally. How personally have you benefited from being a Republican? Last week I told you precisely how I felt I had benefited by being a Democrat with just one thing, just the health insurance situation. But I would like to know how you feel the Republican Party has helped you. Now, I know you like the Republican Party philosophies, but how have those philosophies benefited you as an individual?
I see Democrats with some of the same philosophies, though. You've got the way they want to raise their kids, the way that they want to teach their kids to grow up and get a good education.
Sure.
And it's actually happening. You've used your son as an example a time or two, when he'd have to ask you, Dad, was it really that bad?
Yeah.
And of course. And the rest of us kids out there that didn't know anything was going on, like especially the Tulsa thing.
Yeah.
When we find out that our beloved almighty media has taken a part in hushing that story from the general public from day one, and it was over 100 years ago. So that indicates that a problem that's over 100 years old, that's still not being resolved, needs some attention. Common sense will teach this.
We have to be honest, and one of the things critical race theory doesn't want us to be honest. Thomas Jefferson was a pedophile. By any standard you want to use, Thomas Jefferson was a pedophile. He had Sally Hemings, was having babies when she was a teenager. That's just the reality.
Word had it that Ben Franklin got around really good too.
Yeah,
with the ladies.
So those people would have gone to jail. Today, those people would be in jail for doing that. That's true. And just because it happened back at that time doesn't make it less true. You still would be subject to some of the morals that you say you believe in. I mean, that's just the facts. Now, for you to you don't want your kids to know that one of the founding fathers was having sex with a teenager? Okay, I know you don't want to, but don't you think that your kids can handle that information?
Everybody says it tongue-in-cheek. But the old saying was, if your daughter is not married by age 14, she's an old maid.
Yeah,
Remember those days?
Yeah.
And today, 14 will get you 30.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So let's do something else here. I got here a list of things that compare Democratic and Republican ideas. And you can, if you disagree with any of these, you can call up. This is economic ideas.
Now keep your ears open real good for this one here because you might just learn something.
That's right. Economic ideas. Democrats, they believe in minimum wages, progressive taxation, higher tax rate for higher income brackets, born out of anti-federalist ideals, but evolved over time to favor more government regulation. Conservatives believe taxes shouldn't be increased for anyone, including the wealthy, and that wages should be set by the free market. Now, that's the difference between a Democratic ideal on the economy and a Republican ideal on the economy. I don't believe we can allow the free market complete freedom in setting wages, because it won't happen. I think we're experiencing something now that we haven't seen in a long time, and it's making conservatives uncomfortable. But people are saying, I'm not going to take that job for $8 an hour anymore. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to try to go do something else, and I don't want to work 3 jobs to try to make myself able to live. So you got people that are reorienting themselves in society in terms of the kind of employment they want, and you also have employers who have to pay more money. Now, that means that we might have to pay a little more at the restaurant, and some of our supplies may cost us a little more, and quite frankly, I'm really okay with that, because I don't think a grown person should be working for $7.25 an hour. And I said this to a friend of mine some time back, and he wasn't in total agreement with me. But if you recall, when we were growing up, Cliff, at McDonald's and Burger King were all the kids from high school. That's the only people who worked there. All your high school buddies and girls from high school, they were all working at McDonald's and Burger King.
Fast food was a quick, easy first job.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it didn't pay very well. But,
right.
And other big mega companies followed that
model.
The model, yeah. They followed that model, and how better off is everybody still to this day? There's old folks working at McDonald's again.
Exactly. That was my point. If you look now, there's grown people working at McDonald's trying to raise a family. Yeah. So, again, you're free to call up and debate me.
Yeah. And there are some companies out there that won't let you work a whole 40-hour week in spite of the low wages.
Right, because they don't want to pay benefits.
They don't want to pay time and a half.
Yep, they don't want to pay time.
They don't want to pay double time for holidays.
Right, exactly, yeah. Okay, here's social and human ideas. Democrats, based on community and social responsibility. Republicans, based on individual rights and justice. I don't know about that. Based on individual rights. I know that's a very important part of being a conservative, the individual rights part. Not so sure about that they live up to the justice part. But anyway, that's the description here. The stance on military issues. Democrats believe in decreased spending on military, and Republicans believe in increased spending on the military. I'm going to say to you, I think our military model is completely wrong and out of date. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. The world realizes when it comes to hardware, we are superior. There's nobody even close to us when it comes down to military armaments. So where are they fighting you at now? On the internet. The internet is the new fight. That's where the battle's going to take place, on the internet. So I think we need to, and I have no doubt, if we made a commitment, a strong commitment to internet security and providing maximum protection to our country, there's no one that could beat us. But we haven't yet, and we can't completely, because some states where some of those armaments are made, those senators and Congress people do not want to stop the production of those weapons.
Because we're such warmongers. You know, we are. We want to. Let's see. They used to say, "Agree but verify." Remember that little line?
Yeah.
And because they're waiting for a chance to go blow somebody up. That's the Pentagon and the military are constantly looking for potential threats, and when they find them, they don't just say, "Oh, there's one over there and one over there." They make a plan for attack and they submit them, and they put them up for submission and see what the Congress thinks about them. And
listen, here's another thing that whether there's going to be people that don't like me saying this, but it's the truth. We've got military bases in places nobody knows about. You know that, right, Cliff?
Oh yes,
We got military bases.
I know you don't talk conspiracy theories, but you know it does. It sounds like a conspiracy theory. But you tell me where all these bases are, folks. You don't know where they're at, and
No.
we know where some of them are. We know a couple places that they don't admit exist. You know, look at Area 51, for example.
Yes,
And that's of UFO conspiracy areas, but hey, you know, we do use some pretty dangerous warplanes out there that were created and tested there.
yeah.
And you know, things that were designed to kill and destroy people. That's where our biggest problem is, because you know, I don't know if it's a really good thing if let's say there were aliens and they were going to come make friends with us. They might not want to do that. We're a dangerous bunch of people down here. We want to blow them up and before they land, and we don't seem to care if they're peaceful or not.
Well, the thing is, and again, this is part of what people don't want their kids to know, that they need to know. What we did to the Indians is just absolutely horrific. It is absolutely horrific. We actually paid bounties at some point for people to kill Indians.
Wow.
We killed Indians and took their land. I mean, that's truth. Now, you could say, well, why does anybody have to know that? Well, I think we should tell that, don't you think?
Well, now, if I remember my history correctly, history was created, taught to us, to keep the same stuff from happening over and over again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, just like people are like, why did they stop the pipeline? Now, I'm going to tell you, I am gung-ho for energy, but that was sacred Indian burial ground that they were going through. And in my opinion, it's my personal opinion, with what they have had to deal with, if they didn't want you to go through their burial ground, by God, we should respect that. That should have been respected. There's nothing to fight about. I mean, listen, we pushed them all onto a reservation, you know, took some of them and made them go to school. And if they ask you not to put a pipe through their sacred Indian burial ground, by God, we should honor it. What's the big deal? That's something we should honor. Okay, but I know you're going to say, oh, he's a liberal panty waist softy. No, that's not being soft. That's called respect.
A lot of those folks act like that and hide behind religion to justify their own actions. You know, and that in itself. if anybody wants to change the world, pray for peace. I dare you.
Yeah.
You pray for peace, you're going to get in trouble. Because when you get not peace, truth. I'm sorry, truth. Pray for truth. It's trouble.
Yes.
Because the truth always hurts somebody. Because the truth, it doesn't really care, what's written. It doesn't really care what the society standards are. The truth is the truth is the truth. And when you pray for truth and you start getting it, it doesn't seem to line up with what you were told to believe.
And we're short on truth right now.
Yes.
But anyway, here's our stance on death penalty. Democrats, while support for the death penalty is strong among Democrats, opponents of the death penalty are a substantial faction of the Democratic base. Republicans, a large majority of Republicans support the death penalty. So that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. Stance on taxes. Progressive, high income earners should be taxed at a higher rate, generally not opposed to raising taxes to fund government. That's Democrats. Republicans tend to favor a flat tax, same tax rate regardless of income, generally opposed to raising taxes. Now, I would just tell you, I would not have a problem with a flat tax if you eliminated all deductions and exclusions and you just said, everybody in America is going to pay 5% tax or 7% or whatever the number is. I don't know that I would have a real problem with that.
I would think that the government would, it would be an incentive to help promote the people into believing in themselves enough that they can get out there and make really good money all by themselves and be glad to pay the taxes because the money's out there to be made.
Yeah.
Instead of it being filtered through all the greed that's going on out there.
Stance on government regulation. This is Democrats. Government regulations are needed to protect consumers. Republicans, government regulations hinder free market capitalism and job growth.
Oh, the guys that don't want to pay 40 hours. Oh, my, yeah.
Well, I know conservatives do not like regulations.
Unless they're making them.
Right, exactly. But if there was ever a case for regulations, just look at what happened in Miami, just with the building falling down.
Yeah, not regulated enough to get it inspected before everybody got killed. Wow.
Yes.
There's a big liability case coming.
Oh,
that'll be one.
God.
We'll have to ask the lawyer on Friday about this, what he thinks.
Somebody's going to be bankrupt.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's going to be. The homeowners association is never going to have enough money to pay the bills, and hopefully they had a pretty healthy homeowners association liability policy.
Yeah, they didn't miss any of their payments.
Yeah, somebody's gonna be bankrupt out of
the
that.
The inspections should have taken place and actually been acted upon because they had inspections. They knew. That's the worst thing about it.
Here's the thing, and this is my friends. I know Brian Longworth is a real anti regulation guy, but regulations keep us safe. You think about the bridges and things that they have to build. Recently when I was in New York, I stayed at my friend's house in Long Island. The steps to his upstairs, I know, are illegal now. They were so steep.
Wow. They
don't allow you to build steps like that in a house anymore. Because there's a regulation like it. I used to know this off the top of my head. At OSHA, they have like a 1 in 10, 1 foot for a 10-inch rise or something like that. They have a ratio of how steps have to be built to protect the public. So, healthcare policy. Democrats support universal health care, strong support of government involvement in health care, including Medicare and Medicaid, generally support Obamacare. Republicans, private companies can provide health care services more efficiently than government-run programs, oppose Obamacare provisions like requirement for individuals to buy health insurance or pay a fine, required coverage of contraceptives. They don't like to be that health companies have to provide contraceptive coverage. I guess that goes along with their stance about abortion. I have pretty strong feelings about health care. We are one of the richest, if not the richest country on earth, and we don't want to provide health care for our people. Now, you can talk to me from now until tomorrow morning, and I will never understand why we won't do anything about that. It just makes no sense at all. Just absolutely 0 sense does that make. And if we had to take a chunk of the defense spending to help provide medical benefits for the American public, so be it. Let it be done. Why? We should be able, if nothing else, what we just went through with COVID tells you how important medical care is. Some of the people that got really sick and died were people that couldn't afford to go see a doctor on a regular basis. And some of them had to wait until they were on death's doorstep in order to go to the hospital to get treatment. In a rich country like this, that's a sin. That's just absolutely ridiculous that that happens. But nevertheless, so I hope someday, I hope I live long enough to see our country finally evolve to the point that they're willing to provide health care for all people, and that they don't make that a monetary thing that people have to be able to do whether they can afford it or not. Stance on immigration. Democrats. There's a greater overall support in the Democratic Party for a moratorium on deporting or offering a pathway to citizenship to certain undocumented immigrants, e.g. those with no criminal record who have lived in the U.S. for 5+ years. I kind of can agree with that. Republicans are generally against amnesty for any undocumented immigrants. They also oppose Obama's exclusive order that put a moratorium on deporting certain workers. Republicans also fund stronger enforcement actions at the border. My thoughts on immigration. I do not want open borders. I think as a sovereign nation, we have a right to protect our borders. But by the same token, I think we have to take a giant-sized dose of reality. And one of the things that I've said before, and I'm going to say it again, there's a part of me that wishes they would stop all immigration. Just stop it, cold, flat, no more. And you know why I want that to happen? Because when an orange costs $15 for an orange, and you can't get a clean room in a hotel because most of the people that were willing to do those jobs were immigrants, some of you are going to wake up. Some of you will then wake up when you've got to pay $15 for an orange, because there ain't enough people that go out there and pick the fruit. you're going to wake up. But I just want to make it very clear, although I am a diehard Democrat, I am not for open borders, but I am in favor of a pathway to citizenship for people who have lived here for an extended period of time. And I think some of it is really tragic. You know, we have people that have served in the military, lived here all of their life, and they have been deported back to Mexico. Some of them don't know the language, don't have any family there.
Wait a minute, they served in our military, and they still can't have citizenship? Wouldn't that be the ultimate proof of a good citizen?
I would think so.
Who would put their life on the line for a country they love? It's not the one that they grew up in. But you can't blame people for wanting to be here.
No.
You can't, because I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't born somewhere else and had to sneak in. But then some of my ancestors did. You know.
Yep.
And well, you know, the Irish weren't totally innocent because, well, I understand that we did some family tree history years ago, and the Desmonds changed their name spelling. There was an I in the middle of it. It was Desmond.
Mm-hmm.
And they changed that when they were exiled from Ireland for stealing horses and moved to the United States. They changed the spelling of the name. Now, this was hundreds of years before I come along, and I've never had the desire to steal a horse, although I have enjoyed horse riding, so I can understand that somebody who wants to do that, they go ahead and do it. There's a penalty, but there's a penalty for everything that people just go ahead and do when they're not supposed to do things like that. And exile was one of them. Could you imagine somebody being exiled from the United States? Has it ever happened, do you think?
No. Other than, like I said, if you go out there, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. There's a group of guys that have formed a group on the other side of the border of soldiers who were deported, who were served in the military. And it's kind of heartbreaking to think that they go and put their life down for our country, and then we deport them. So, but you know, what are you going to do? Here's another thing that I saw floating around on Facebook, and I just want to throw it out to you. President Biden is in the process of trying to forgive some student debt. And there was one person in particular on there who really is angry about the fact that he wants to waive student debt. How do you feel about that? I don't. I had debt when I came out of school. Nothing like what they do today, and at the time, to me, it seemed like a lot of money. But I don't feel deprived that I had to pay my debt, and other people will not have to pay their debt, because I really feel that allowing those debts to be waived would be an opportunity to inject more money into our economy. And some of those kids that have graduated from school who have to wait 10 years to try to buy a house because they got to get rid of some of that student loan debt, maybe they can buy a house in 5 years. So we as a society, I think, would benefit from them having their debt waived if they are out being productive. Now, I know years ago, a good doctor friend of mine ended up here in Fort Pierce because one of the programs they had back then was if you agreed to come and serve in a certain type of community, they waived your medical bill debt. And that ended up bringing this individual here. And I won't call the name because the person is well known. But That's a pretty good idea. I don't know if they still have the program, but it used to be that if you were a doctor and you agreed to serve in a socio-economically deprived community, they would waive part of your medical school debt. Pretty good deal.
Yeah.
We all benefit from that. You know, they come here and they become a part of our society, and this particular person is a super productive member of our society, puts money into the economy, and they had less debt. So they were able to buy a house and an office for their practice, you know, all kinds of really, really nice things. So I have no problem with that. You know, now some people, it's like, well, they didn't do it for me, so they shouldn't do it for anybody else. Oh, stop it. That's a big sissy. They didn't do it for me, so why are they going to do it for somebody else?
That's whining.
That is
like
whining.
A 4-year-old.
That is.
I want mine.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what it is, Cliff.
It is what it is.
Yeah. It's just whining. You know, how come they didn't do that for me? Why did I have to pay? I had to pay my debt, and they didn't have to pay theirs. Well, listen, I'll give you a story. I know I paid mine twice. Because I paid it the first time, and I was young, and I didn't keep all my records. And when I went to go buy a house, they said I still owed it. So I had to go pay it again because I didn't have any record of the first payment that I made.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, right. and I'm still not upset at the fact that there's going to be people that don't have to pay their debt, even though I paid mine twice. But hey, But in any event, it's been pretty quiet tonight. I guess all of you are all talked out, or I just was giving you so much to think about.
Sometimes they sit there and they think, and actually, you know, the thought process starts to grow, and they get agitated, they get more information, they find out things, and people change their minds about things.
Yeah.
And it's always about things. It's nothing. It's never about anything that's too real. I mean, unless it's something that's absolutely that we need, then there's always going to be resistance. I don't know why.
Well, you know, I told you before, ma'am, that's what my sister says when they don't call. My sister said they're sitting there absorbing all the information that you're giving them, so they're busy trying to listen as opposed to talking.
I think some of them are like calling Gertrude's office and changing their affiliation.
I hope so. I sure hope so. I hope there are people out there that want to become Democrats that were Republicans, because that'll be good for us as a society, because what we're doing right now I don't like, and it's ugly, and I hope to God we can change it. We got to let people vote.
So we have to do it as Americans then.
Yes, and we have to stop telling lies about it, you know, because
Or covering it up.
Yeah. We can't be trying to cover up our past bad behavior. If we had bad behavior, we had bad behavior.
But one bad apple doesn't ruin the whole bunch.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, folks, I have to tell you, as always, it was a pleasure to spend Wednesday evening with you for an hour, and for allowing me to share my thoughts and emotions about current topics of the day. And I'd like for you all to be safe. God bless, and I will see you right here next Wednesday for the African American Scene.
The African American Scene with Rudy Howard, presented each week at this time by Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie. That's how you know he knows so much about insurance. That's Rudy. And archives of this show are on YouTube. Go to WPSLTV.com and look for the African American Scene playlist. This is WPSL, Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.